Now for something completely different. A scraggly Ian playing disc golf and Dungeons & Dragons.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Half in the Bag Disc Golf Podcast with your only host today, Popperfresh, otherwise known as Ian. You may recognize me from such films as my Twitch channel. Okay, well, now that I've got a little bit of shameless self-promotion out of the way, I figured I would say hello, happy Father's Day, everybody. The first episode, at least while I'm recording it, is during the Father's Day weekend. I'm going to guess that I'm most likely not getting played near Father's Day, but oopsies poopsies. And, you'll all be okay. So anyway, anyone who's a father out there, happy Father's Day, happy Juneteenth. To those as well who are celebrating Juneteenth. I think that covers my major holodays. So let's get into what I'm drinking this evening. We've got a little more of the Valkyrie Hero. Let's get the cat up here. For those of you seeing the video, Valkyrie Hero by Revolution Brewing, based here in Chicago. As I then thrust it into my face, trying to smack beer through me. Anyway, so a solo episode. What is this going to look like? What are we going to do? How do we do solo? Well, we're going to do some D&D and disc golf. Now, I know that there have been there was a YouTube video about D&D disc golf that was posted like Monday of this past week, being the 20th of June 2022. Go ahead and date the podcast right away. And I know that there was last year, or maybe it was 2020. I'm sorry. The temperature's been doing all sorts of stuff, so my allergies are all over the place. So I apologize to those of you who are like, why did they let this crack fiend talk and do podcast things? Okay, anyway, blasting past that. So, as we are getting into that fun and fluffy stuff, not another D&D podcast. I know that they did some stuff that was, what's the word I'm looking for? D&D and disc golf related. I have not checked out either of those particular pieces of content as of the recording for this episode, but I will most likely check out those pieces of content as we go on further. Now, you might say to yourself, well, what the heck does D&D, or tabletop RPGs in general, have to do with disc golf? And you're like, well, simple. I like both of those things, so we're gonna do some stuff with those. You're like, well, what kind of pedigree do you have? How could you possibly be some kind of a strange, overweight expert on this? But I would say, that's a good question. The answer is, I've been enjoying tabletop RPGs for a very long time. So, those who are watching the podcast on the Half in the Bag Disc Golf channel, or no, I believe it's just on Joe's Disc Golf Network, or Joe's Disc Golf YouTube channel. I'll have to check with Business Daddy about that one. Anyway, you get a visual aid, but those of you listening to the audio, don't worry. I'll still be describing exactly what's going on, so that way you can enjoy the episodes as well. So, just a visual aid. We've got the good old D&D 5e. Ooh, yes, shiny books. My wife currently has my player's hand guide. So you're like, really? You don't have a player's hand guide? They're like, yes, I do. My wife just has it. As I was asked to DM a one-shot for a bunch of people who have just discovered Critical Role, and they're like, this is amazing, I would like to play D&D. And they were like, would you lead the campaign? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So then I don't have my books currently. They're actually at my office. But the Dresden Files RPG, which uses the Fate system, is another campaign setting that I've run things in. Good old Pathfinder, first edition. I have not picked up 2E yet. For those of you in the know, Pathfinder is essentially Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. And then the two newest ones that I have yet to actually get to the table, both by Modiphius. We've got the Fallout RPG itself, the tabletop role-playing game, not the video game series, but the role-playing game from Modiphius, and then the role-playing rulebook for their tabletop miniatures warfare game, both of which I've been interested in being able to eventually get a campaign for. Now, I've enjoyed all of the settings of things that I've run. I have run both pre-made and homebrewed content. For those of you who may not necessarily know, homebrewed content refers to something that you have made either yourself or heavily edited from somebody else. So I've done both. I thoroughly enjoy homebrewing, which is why I thought I would take a shot at turning disc golf into something that you can play in D&D. Now, the thing is, when you put something in an already pre-made system, you have to try and work within that particular system. You've got limitations, all sorts of strange things. So, ultimately, what I'd like to do is take the system that I create here with D&D and be able to make a standalone disc golf tabletop game. I think it would be a lot of fun. I am definitely going to be calling it TTF, or Tabletop Frolf. That is very much so going to be the name of the eventual product that I come up with. And once we get things rolling along, if you would like to hop in and playtest TTF, then just let us know, either through Anchor or any of our other channels. Probably slip into the DMs in our Twitter, which is at Half in the Bag Disc Golf Podcast. Sorry, beer break. Been doing a lot of talking. Gotta get that beer in. Yes. Anyway, brain fart. Yeah, so if you'd like to playtest once I get to a point where I feel like we should be playtesting, feel free to contact us in some way, and we'll try to get everything into your hands so that way you can print and play. I would like people to be able to make maps of their own. So there's a lot of different interesting challenges to what we are going to undertake. So that being the case, we're going to go ahead and switch scruns here. And we're going to look at working on our document. Now, I personally, whenever I am creating a campaign setting or anything like that, doing any kind of homebrewing, you got to establish a mood. And that is going to include beverages, it's going to include music, it's going to include a whole bunch of stuff. Now, unfortunately, I can't necessarily stream the music that I would be listening to because, well, YouTube, everybody else would be like, excuse me, but do you have a room full of lawyers? Because you have not paid us the appropriate royalties for the music that you've used. And then, we'd have to look at Business Daddy Joe, and RJ would be looking at me and be like, well, guess we're going to have to sell all of the children and the puppy. I'm pretty sure none of us want to do that. Therefore, I'll let you know in each of the episodes what is going to be the either playlist or band of the session. Now, I have currently really fallen in with a newer group called Shadow Academy. If you are fans of the Game Grumps or of Ninja Sex Party or NSP, you may recognize that title as one of Dan Avidan's newest groups with the producer for NSP, Jim Roach. I've really been enjoying the prog rock that has come out of their collaboration. There we go, words. Yeah, doing stuff. So, that is our music of the evening, is Shadow Academy. Feel free to shout at Half in the Bag DG on Twitter or at Popperfresh, Popr Fresh, with any of your playlist or music suggestions. If you also enjoy jamming out whilst creating some homebrewed content and or having to write papers or whatever other desktop-based activities. All right, so in this first session, we're probably not going to get too crazy far into that many of the rule sets or anything like that. We're not going to necessarily be getting into the nitty-gritty because at this point, we're kind of looking at what are our general goals. So, general goals. General goals we have here, or at least I have here, because I don't know if RJ will eventually join me in potentially doing his own solo episodes in case we need content where the 3 hosts can't actually meet up, or 2 hosts can't even meet up because of interesting schedules. So what is the general goal that I have? Again, my general goal is going to be a playable module inside of D&D 5e %E. Oh goodness, I'm D&D 5e. A playable module inside of D&D 5e that incorporates as much of our modern disc golf rule structure as possible. Ultimate goal is going to be, again, creating a fully standalone playable tabletop disc golf game. Now, that standalone game is going to definitely take a lot more effort than just creating a supplement for D&D. Now, the fun challenge there is that doing the D&D exercise first is going to allow us to warm up. It's going to allow us to figure out a lot of the minutia that we need to be able to implement this on as its own standalone game ready to go. Now, you might say, well, that doesn't necessarily make any sense. And I would say, nay, good sir or madame, it does indeed make quite the difference. The reason for that is we're able to work out a whole bunch of different kinks, look at things and say, I do want to keep this, I don't want to keep that. There are a variety of different elements that will get in the way as we are implementing our game and our rule set. So, that being the case, what we are looking at this point is abstraction. Now, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with the term being in relation to game design and game theory, is taking a real-world set of what could be an extremely complex sequence of either physical, social, emotional, or a combination of thereof events, and distilling it into essentially a die roll, and a chart of outcomes. That is your like real minimalist view of what is it when we are talking about abstraction. What are we going to try to abstract? Now, D&D already has tons of abstractions. You have your stat blocks. You've got your strength, you've got your dexterity, intelligence, charisma, blah, 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 blah. That is just a numerical representation of a whole bunch of different stuff. So how swole a particular individual is, how geeky they are, etc. Those are already predefined for us. So now we need to figure out what inside of the role-playing game not the role-playing game, but inside of the disc golf module, what is it that we need to abstract? Well, we need to abstract what different discs there are, how far they can go, what their flight paths are, how to throw them, how to account for accuracy, and lastly, and again, this will be amended a whole bunch of times because this is just stream of consciousness that's happening right now. How to throw them, how to account for accuracy, and how to account for real-world physics. So the real-world physics are going to be things like wind speed, direction of the wind, what terrain type it is, elevation, all that kind of stuff. Literally, we're just thinking about how do I huck a piece of plastic and have any actual idea how it's going to go. Now, there is one thing in terms of map and terrain, because you could completely do this theater of the mind. You could be like, oh, it lays right here, and blah, blah, blah. You try to keep it in here. But let's be honest. You're going to want to make a map. It's going to make things a lot easier. My suggestion for map and terrain is going to be hex tiles. For terrain, this will allow us to account for a variety of directions that a disc can travel and not be stuck with an orthogonal... There we go. Stuck with an orthogonal movement scheme. There we go. And you're like, how? How is this riveting content? And I'll be like, well, you just have to be the right kind of nerd. You know who you are. Nerds. Raise a beer to you guys and gals. All the nerds. It's all good here. All right, so we've got a couple of different notes down. So now, what are we going to be looking at in terms of how? How are we going to apply our D&D rule set and be able to implement disc golf? So let's look at a generic situation for how we throw. So there are, in the real world, there are a variety of... Oh my goodness. I have like 3 sips of beer and all of a sudden I'm just a giant hiccup and mess. Well, apparently my refrigerator is overserving me and I've become the world's lightest of weights, even though I am not light of weight. Wit and humor and a lack of anybody else here to riff off of. Oh goodness, I forgot how hard doing a text-based, interactless, streamless, chatless podcast could be, oh man. You know, you gotta hand it to the people who do podcasts solo all the time. I mean, literally just talking to yourself over and over again. Eventually, after like 5 episodes, I'd listen to myself and be like, man, shut up. Just shut up, dude. This is awful. Okay, anyway, getting back from that tangent, beer break. Let us know your favorite beers or your favorite drinks. What do you like to drink out on the course? Hit us up in the socials. You can find us over there. I unfortunately forget my co-hosts' handles, except for Joe's Disc Golf, because he keeps it simple. And that's it. Joe's Disc Golf, at Joe's Disc Golf, and Instagram hashtag Joe's Disc Golf. I don't Instagram. I'm not that cool. I'm sorry. Oh yes. Also, this became an ASRM podcast. Hi, welcome. I hope you're really, really looking forward to an overweight dude's voice just kind of weirdly talking to you quietly in your microphone. Okay, anyway, enough of that particular joke. Here we go. So, how to throw. So we have a variety of different styles of shot. We've got our backhand, we've got a forehand, you've got thumbers, you've got Did I just completely, totally... Well, we are here at the internet. Let's go ahead and, come here, you. Let's go ahead and, disc golf, shot terminology. No shame in it. Just go ahead and, look stuff up. 'Cause why not? Let's see, we've got backhand grip, 2-finger sidearm forehand. Yeah, so, oh yeah, there's just so many terms. I'm not even going to try to necessarily remember all of these. However, this is a pretty nice little, Sorry about that. Dear editor and business daddy, there is a moment around 22 seconds where I inadvertently pressed the wrong buttons and we went to a Technicolor difficulty screen. Joseph came down in his coat. He sang us a couple of songs, but you might want to take that out for posterity's sake. It only lasted for about a second or two in real time, but in the interdimensional rift that we accidentally fell into, it was like a 2.5-hour show of repetitive Andrew Lloyd Webber music. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy Phantom of the Opera, but he does like to repeat himself. Anyway. I always do love getting whatever I can from the internet, and if I find a good link to something that I really like, I always throw it in my documents, so that way I can refer to it later. So, okay. So going back to our thought of how do we huck this piece of plastic? You grab it, and you throw it, right? That is the literal base mechanics of disc golf. Grab piece of plastic. It's disc shaped. I'm pretty sure I said that correctly the first time, but I know you naughty ninnies out there. You're trying to get one up on me. Anyway, grab round piece of plastic, take plastic, throw. Trying to hit small basket in distance. Okay. So is that strength? Is that dexterity? What are our core modifiers that we're looking at? Now, D&D does have a bunch of different things called feats. So we could perceivably make a whole bunch of disc golf related feats that then are applied specifically to various traits. Now, that is most likely going to be the best way to do it. Creating a list of feats using the terminology from our world will allow us to look at what is it that we want to say, what are the core things. You could of course get interesting and make up some trick shots, things like that. You could figure out how you want to apply it. But again, we're trying to make this as easily implementable as possible into an existing system. And then ultimately, if we are looking at creating our own tabletop frolf game, TTF, registered trademark pending, owned by at Popperfresh at Ian. So you're looking at what is going to be the easiest way to understand this in the world and for players. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, specifically when you level a character up, allows you to take a certain number of feats. Now, because this is a for fun module, and not specifically something that you would necessarily say is pertaining solely to combat or another very specifically spelled out rule set, we could make the argument that for every level, following Dungeons and Dragons already pre-described feats selection rule or abilities selection, you could then go ahead and specifically check a number of things per, and then give yourself a bunch of levels, and you would then get a roll modifier. Now, the big problem we have here, and for those of you not familiar with the D20 system, if you are unfamiliar with what a D20 is, it is a polyhedral 20-sided die, or dice 20, shorthand D20. Okay, where did my... there we go. I was like, I brought visual aids. D20. For those of you who are looking at the video, just a nice little blue D20. So, with D&D, if you were like, okay, I'm going to go and tee off, you're like, okay, I take my D20. I'm going to roll it. I'm going to roll that number. Whatever number it is, I'm then going to add my modifier. So either if we were like, well, you know, if we were going real basic, it's like, oh, it's a backhand, so it's strength-based. And if you're like, well, it's a forehand, it's dexterity-based, then it would be whatever those particular modifiers for your character are. Now, if we are saying that a class ability, so we've generated a whole list of, here are the different things you are proficient in the disc golf module. You then take that modifying number, add it to your number, and then you've got a huge variety of different possibilities for how that can play out. So you could have a DM that's going to be like, well, you know, you just kind of like, you're going to describe, if we know what the disc is, then we generally know how, what's its max distance, a variety of other things, and they can be like, okay, you threw it really well, so, you know, let's say that it's a challenging course, that particular hole, and then that's a whole, that's a whole other thing that we have to abstract, is hole and course difficulty. Boom. Okay, see, I told you, when you are in this stage of trying to figure a whole bunch of stuff out, this is what it's going to be. Excuse me. Beer all up in here. So, yeah, bear with me, because we'll be going around this. Yes. Okay, so stuff and things. So you could have the dungeon master or the game master say something along the lines of, oh, okay, so based on the challenge rating, this, that, and the other thing, okay, it flies this many number of feet forward, and, because, there we go. There's another abstraction layer that we need to disk. Wait, did I say disk flight? Oh, what their flight paths are. I already got that one. Okay. So, based on its understable disk, you hucked it at the right speed, so it's going to do this, and it'll fly this many feet forward and this many feet to the left or to the right, depending on how you threw it. We could create a roll table. So when you roll the disk, instead of the DM or GM specifically having kind of like the general say, you roll your disc. Oh my goodness. You roll your die. You get your result. And then you go ahead and look it up in a quick table, and it tells you, okay, flight characteristics are this and this. And then the dungeon master can say, okay, well, it's a challenge rating of this with a headwind of this, which means subtract 10 feet. Boom. Done. Right? You put your little disc on the map, and you're like, okay, that's where I am. I could choose a new disc, which has new flight characteristics and a maximum distance and things like that. So that is probably the easiest way to go about thinking of that particular... What's the word I'm looking for? Thinking of that particular set of circumstances and how to base abstract it. Now, those of us who enjoy the numbers and who enjoy thinking about these things when playing a game, this can be fun and interesting. However, there are a large number of people who are going to be like, I don't want to have to do this much thinking about hucking a piece of plastic in my fantasy land. Like, come on now. What are you doing to me here? So we then get to a point where, because now you're like, okay, well, the roll table for a medium disc, like, it still is the same thing. Like, oh, you got a natural 20, like, it flies perfectly. Oh, I got a 10 to 15. It kind of flies right, but not really. Like, it can get a little heavy, and it can get a little not fun. So, then we get to the thought of, do we roll dice, a dice pool, based on what we're throwing, and being able to, by our modifiers, pick different rolls that get us different results? That is something I think we should consider for the overall standalone game, but for D&D, I think we're going to stick with some roll tables and some general guidelines, because that's going to be the easiest and fastest way to get everybody on board who's playing. So that way, the most number of dice are being thrown constantly and allowing players to maximize the amount of fun. Because that's the other thing that we have to ask ourselves, and one of the biggest things in game design is going to be, where is the fun? What is the fun of D&D? Now, the answer for that is different for everybody. However, we're looking at a module that is specifically for disc golf. So, what's going to be the fun? Throwing something. Throwing dice. We want people throwing all the time. We want lookups to be fast. In fact, we may even modify a lookup table to be a flowchart, because that will then maximize the amount of fun for as many players as possible, as well as the dungeon master. Now, this module is where a dungeon master could potentially have a little bit of fun and jump in on the action. So, again, less rules adjudicating and more having a good time. That's kind of what we're headed for. That's what I'm striving for with this particular module. So, what have we decided? What are we... I wrote how to throw down here, but that's not what we actually wanted. So what are we looking at here? What is it that we've actually decided we want to do? What I have decided that I'm going to do is create a class skills table, assign each to a base stat, and allow for a number of selections per level. And that is what we've decided to do in episode number 1. Now, the question is whether or not you guys have enjoyed, and guys and gals have enjoyed this particular glasses pushing up experience of nerddom. I am going to create a couple more in this series. So if you do enjoy this and you would like the format to be longer, because this is a niche subject in a niche subject, I don't necessarily want to bore everybody to death. So if you're like, hey, I really enjoyed this, please let us know. If you would like the format to be longer, I can spend longer on these episodes. When RJ gets back into the production schedule, when he's back from vacation, my guess is he's going to want to jump in on this. Joe might want to jump in some regard, but he's the cool dude in the group. And he's just like, oh God, shut up, dude. But in terms of RPG experience, Joe is the least experienced out of all of us, so I don't know if he's going to necessarily jump in on these. But at first, I'm going to kind of treat these as my solo episodes, just so that way, again, if we run into a situation like we have in this past week with people's work and vacation schedules, people getting sick, holidays, all that get in the way, that we are still able to get the content out to y'all. Because we really do want to make sure that you are all enjoying Half in the Bag Disc Golf. So, with that being said, Business Daddy, cue the outro music. Don't forget to go and check out Joe's Disc Golf Network. The 2 podcasts and YouTube shows in the channel are Joe's Disc Golf. Oh my goodness. Joe's Disc Golf and Half in the Bag Disc Golf podcast. You also have Joe's Disc Golf or joesdiscgolf.com/store, which will get you to the online portal to purchase sweet swag, such as the Treesus mug and other nice goodies. Being the person who has written the most number of scripts, I should probably actually make sure I know what it is that Joe wants me to cover in the intro and the outro. I should probably write a script for that. You'd think I would do that. Have I done that? No, I have not done that. Okay, so anyway, having a good time. Ha ha, yeah. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else that I need to be thinking about? I don't think so. Yes. Well, I hope you all enjoyed D&D Disc Golf Rules, episode number 1. I will see you all for some more D&D Disc Golf implementation for episode 2 and 3 at least. Oh no, this could take us many episodes. So please, write in, call into Anchor, leave us a voicemail, shoot us an email, slip into our DMs, wherever you can find us, or join the Joe's Disc Golf Discord channel. And feel free to drop us a line and let you know what you think of everything. All right, everybody, thank you very much, and you all have a fantastic morning, noon, night, afternoon, fun time, whatever you are participating in. Get out, do some disc golfing, throw some dice, play some D&D, maybe do both, and you have yourselves an excellent day. Thank you, everybody. Bye.